We're back again live. Let's just get started again. People will
Sure.
join us as we go.
Yeah.
We're into it now, 20 minutes. So I was just mentioning, Bill, about the Waves and War movie from Netflix on the impact of loss.
Mm,
And this is just the U.S. Loss in this case, post 9/11, throughout the operations in Afghanistan, Iraq. There was a loss rate of actual deaths. This isn't not including wounded and whatnot, but the actual deaths were 7,057, 7,000 some deaths. And it was very impactful, as you know, in a war memorial cemetery, the straight lines of white granite,
yeah.
uh, on, uh, back to, what do you call it? The markers,
Hmm.
and whatnot. That was very impactful to see that, and that's in Arlington, a good portion of that too, right?
That is
So
correct. Yeah.
the officer that was talking about post, and this is
Yeah.
now with active and retired veterans from the military units post 9/11, the actual loss rate by suicide is four times that.
That's
It's like
correct.
suicide has eclipsed the actual losses in action in operations, specific operations, by four times to a tune of over 30,000 losses by suicide itself. And that's losses that families feel directly every day.
Hmm.
So when we talk about that life after service, Bill, what what things have you done to help structure your life to feel safe and part of real life that prevents you from having these feelings, or do you have these feelings yourself?
Yeah. I think we all have these feelings. And I always feel there's an element of depression that's almost like a low grade fever that runs through almost every service member because I'm a believer that those of us who follow that call of selfless service, we have to constantly be dancing on the threshold of heartbreak and expectation and hope. We talked about the power of hope. And and so I think as a result, when you're constantly juggling those things and the world is letting you down and you're trying to be a peacemaker, and still there are all these signs that people are, others in power or people are choosing not to go the route of peace, it breaks your heart. And so for me, when I think about that low grade fever of depression, which sometimes is just that place of, worrying that the past is going to repeat itself and not having enough certainty and hope about the future, that we're stuck. What I do for myself and what I encourage others to do is to write, is to create, is to draw, is to paint. Um, there's a lot of us that I think wouldn't necessarily immediately turn to the power of creativity to feel into what we're feeling, but I'm a believer that just by drawing or writing or singing or dancing or moving or laughing, in some cases for a lot of people it's working out, and that's wonderful as well. But to tap into that creativity, I believe, is is a fissure. It's like a release valve for us. And some of the most powerful art and creativity, I think, comes from those who are hurting the most, carrying
Mm,
that carrying that
yeah,
hurt and that pain. So for me,
all the
writing has been huge.
yeah, and poets of the past. That's it's not just
Yeah.
present. Poets of the past suffered with this, and they may not even have been in battle. And these dark nights you talked about earlier, and the expression that you say that can help you um, to get that pain out onto paper, let's say, or in a
Mhm.
painting. Many paint, as you know. And I was going to ask you this question, and maybe it is a skill that you carried over from the service, is that communications, because that was one of your depths of knowledge in the military. So is that sort of one of the skills that you've been able to carry over into civilian life then?
Absolutely. I think the ability to communicate with brevity, but with purpose and impact is something that I refined in the military. And a lot of times we have to convey really complex information in a short period of time with maximum understanding and impact. And that is a balancing act at all times. And I was very fortunate in the service because I was an aide de camp to three different generals. And so over the course of working for those three different flag officers, you learn the style of refined but effective communications. You also learn trust, which is
Mm,
really, really important. And the only way I believe that you can earn and keep trust, especially through communication with other people who are put in your stead, who are put in your care, is to first have trust with yourself.
yes,
If you don't
yes.
trust who you are and the words you're using and the gifts you have, that will that will convey, and those around you, those who are in your charge, um, will have doubts. And
Hmm.
so, probably the most important thing that people can do as communicators, as caretakers of others' lives or careers, is to learn to trust yourself. Spend that time, go inward, right? Un, un, unfasten that under armor that we have.
Yeah.
And that's where I think art and creativity are really helpful because that's the best way you can get to know yourself.
Well, that is so true, and it really it makes me kind of think of I created a brand. It's called Wake Up Rich 428, and that's my handle on Substack. And I think Bill, you now know what 4 to 8 stands for, right? Wake
Yes,
up
I
at
do.
4, wake up at 4, and between 4 to 8 in the morning, that's your time. And the wake up is an acronym for wake is the 0400. Eight
Mhm.
is arrive. So that's the part where you arrive and sit tranquilly and quiet and be with your thoughts. But the K is kind of what you're talking about. The Kindle in K is the Kindle those creative ways and means and get that expression out on paper. And then you talked about exercise. Some people use exercise, and that's the E, energize your body. Drink water, tea, whatever. And then the up is an interesting piece is the unfolding. You is the unfolding. That letting yourself come and having that feeling come out and expression, whether it's in your diary or your writing, whatever. But P is project. That's getting now I can say this is who I am. I show up as me today. That's my projection. That's where people use affirmations and other ways of expressing their what they want to put forward in the world today. So thanks for bringing that up. And it was
Yeah.
a way to, I like to use that as my method of operations, if you will. SOP, you know what that stands for.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my SOP in the morning. So that's not SOP, everybody. That's SOP as in Papa. Okay. Make sure it's clear and understood. That's what you said, Bill. Clear and
That's right.
understood.
Yeah.
Sarah, Oscar, Papa,
Uh,
SOP. Okay.
yeah.
So back to you. So what's your first assignment that you give yourself each day or week? What's your first assignment that you give yourself?
It's very simple. I make my bed.
Hey, I love it. I love it.
I encourage people to not overcomplicate the manifestations and the movements. But I loved how you actually said the acronym, the U stood for unfolding. I'm I'm a believer that every day we unfold ourselves into the world, and at night we fold ourselves into our sort of subconsciousness. And we should treat it with the sanctity of what you and I and many used to do, which is the unfolding of the flag, raising
Yes,
the flag.
for
And the end of
sure.
the day, you pull down the flag and you fold it up with sanctity. You should do the same thing for your soul, your dreams, your consciousness. And so the
That's
first thing
that's
I
a
do,
really good one for unfurl. I love that. So yeah,
yeah,
the first thing you do. What's your you,
yeah,
you said you made the bed. Hold on to your thought because I want to stick with this one just for a minute. Now, okay. How insane was it in basic on how tight your bed had to be?
it was
Insane.
um, it was insane. And people who know the sensation, we used to in basic training, we used to make the bed with all the four corners and the squares and bounce the nickel off it, all that stuff. And then we would be so worried about undoing those corners that many of us would sleep on top of our blankets, right? We would actually never get into the sheets and on the covers.
Unreal. That's
Yeah.
exact. We slept on the floor. If it was
Yeah.
a major inspection, we slept on the floor beside our bed.
Yep. Yep.
You did not want to wrinkle it, but we even got crazier because we were on cots. I don't know what yours are like because I was in
Yes.
the
We were.
70s. This was the
Mhm.
70s and 80s. We take safety pins and tie a safety
Underneath.
pin underneath to
Yeah.
keep it tight. But if you got caught with that, they'd flip your bed over and destroy your kit. It would just be
Correct.
mayhem. There'd be
Correct.
stuff flying out of your locker, and your rifle would be thrown onto the bed, obviously, not onto the floor, but you would be eviscerated for doing that. But yet we all did it because we were all so anal that we were going to get picked up. So
Yes.
I just want to, I have to stay with this, and then we'll get back to
Yeah.
you. I would leave something in my kit, like a little piece of lint somewhere that they would see so they could yell at me about that little thing so
Yes.
they wouldn't touch my bed
Yep.
because they would dump all your drawers out onto your upside down bed if they caught you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways,
No,
back
you're
to you,
totally right.
Bill.
I mean,
Back to you. Back to
but
you. We're talking about
that's a great
veterans now.
that's a great reminder. And I remember you're absolutely right. We used to self-sabotage in different
Right.
ways in order to avoid the larger chaos, right? So to your point around, I'm going to put some lint here on my uniform. I'm going to put a little
Yeah,
thing. I'm going to have a string hanging off, right?
that's
Because
right. Brad. Reds.
they will come after me for that, but that means they won't flip the bed, right? So that's
That's
absolutely
right.
true. But yeah, I get up every morning and I don't make the bed like I used to in basic training, but I make the bed because there's something about knowing that the rest of the day can come undone. The rest of the day can be chaotic and wrinkled, but you started your day making your bed to your own satisfaction. And it's a little bit of a meditative exercise for me. The other thing I do is when I get in the shower, I'll shower, and then one of these glass showers, and you have the little sort of squeegee thing that you can wipe down, and it seems again very simple and almost an afterthought, but just the ability to wipe down the glass and see all of the drops come down and have a
And the
clean,
squeakiness, the squeak sound. I love it.
yeah,
Okay,
right.
we did not go to the same basic, but yet, what the heck? These are the things. I don't know if you listening in the audience think we're a couple of crack ups or what, but we are both doing that. We don't even live in the same area. We never went to the same service. We
No.
went to basic, and but yet these are things. Okay, I'll admit here, everyone here today, we're going to get serious here in a moment because we're talking about veterans. But I even iron my napkins and tea
Me too.
towels.
Me
Okay,
too. And
unreal.
tablecloths.
Well, I stick away from the tablecloths because that's a lot of sheet. That's a lot of space. But thank you, Bill, for being so
Yeah,
open and vulnerable. Let's get back to something serious here, and
sure.
we'll jump back into identity. So, where do you find your real crew now that you're retired? Where is your crew now?
They're all over the world.
Mm,
I think about the people that I was in the service with, the people that I was in boot camp with, but it's almost like those that are meant to find you will find their way back to you, and those that I know have this deeper connection to me, time can pass, years can pass, Richard. I mean, decades can pass, and I pick up the phone or I get a message or a Facebook Messenger or a text, and it's like no time has passed with these people. And I'm finding myself now in a way connecting with veterans that are of my generation, but older generations as well. And even though we didn't walk the same path, we didn't live in the same place, we didn't even serve in the same branch, we're finishing each other's sentences. And I think it
mm,
goes back to your point around belonging. That sense of belonging that we had in the service, there's almost nothing that comes as close to that feeling. And that's why we always feel like we're constantly searching and looking and yearning. But when I get that moment of connection with my crew, so to speak, it can be anywhere. So there's a particular gentleman who was a Green Beret, Special Forces. I actually met him through Microsoft, and he and I exchange voice messages, voice notes back and forth all the time. And it's a beautiful container for me because he understands exactly what I'm going through or what I'm, so I don't have to worry about finding the right words with him or sounding too vulnerable or too emotional. I just say what I need to say that's on my heart and my soul. I put it in that voice note. It finds its way around the world to him. He's on the other side of the world. And it doesn't matter that we've got 16 time zones between us. Feels like he's right there, and vice versa. That's what it means to sort of be part of this community, to build belonging. Um, and that's where I find my crew.
That is special, and that's the beauty now, yet it's a curse, when I think about the beauty of the internet, emails, messaging services, social platforms, that is a connection, but I think perhaps there's times where I feel that it is overwhelming at times, even on Substack. There's so much there to
Yeah.
read, and how do you stay connected with an audience? I know nowadays it's even hard to create an audience because it's so loud out there and noisy. Um, what are your thoughts about that, like that type of audience and reach? How do we reach people about I Am Veteran? We've got 5 people
Yeah.
here today.
I don't, it's interesting. I don't tend to sort of twist myself into a pretzel about all of the sort of reach. I'm a believer that if you speak truth and hope and from your purpose out in the world, it will find its way to who it needs to find its way
Mhm.
to. And again, that's going to be a bit circuitous. It's not linear, as you described.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the joy to me. Like, that's the wonder. I kind of delight in the fact that, especially even as you mentioned the podcast, I love doing the podcast, but one of the things I love most about it is not the metrics, not the analytics. I love seeing how an episode finds its way around the world. And I
Mm,
and I can see that. I can sort of see that, hey, it was listened to in Canada, then it jumped to Germany, then it jumped to Thailand, then it jumped, and there's almost this invisible atlas of wonder for me, which is, isn't it amazing that somehow I've never been to a country in the world, but my voice is being heard there, or my
yeah,
voice and the voice of someone else is being heard there, and you never know who that's going to help. You never know what nudge that's going to give them. So for me, I trust that if we speak from a place of truth, it will find its way across the interwebs like we're doing. And there's other times, right? Technology lapses and it fails like we
mhm,
just experienced. And
yeah,
that's okay too. That's totally okay too. I approach it with grace, and I understand that sometimes, you know this, Richard, very well, our consciousness and our purpose is bigger than these devices. Even these
yes,
devices cannot handle who we are. Let that be a reminder.
it sure is. And when you talked about showing up, by making your bed each day, and I think about your podcast, 10 plus years, showing up every week. Like, I mean,
Mm,
that's you doing your piece to get the message out there. And that ripple does expand, as you say, around the world. In fact, I even saw you, with your book. Was it in Thailand? You had a copy of your book in Thailand. So
yes.
your book's traveling as well. And that again, could you just tell everybody again the most recent title of your book that you've launched?
Sure. Yeah. So my second book is called Leading Change in the Era of AI, and all of you can pretty much relate to the fact that all of this AI evolution, revolution, depending on how it feels to you, is not slowing down. And for me, I felt it was really important to write what I've kind of subtext called a collection of love letters to humanity. And the book in itself is a reminder to not let go of that humanity. It's why we say heartbeats over haptics.
Hmm.
These technologies are upending and changing our lives, in some ways good, in some ways bad. And I wanted to give people a permission slip to slow down and to discern and to understand what is best for them, and to remember that you have agency and autonomy.
Yeah, that's so great. Hey, and by the way, thanks for being interested in my new book that I'm underway with. So I won't get into too much about that because this is about you today. But I appreciate that because that book actually springboarded a lot of ideas for me as well. But back to veterans, and I am veteran today. Um, we're thinking about people around the world and the impacts that we have had, but yet so many of us, even people perhaps on the call today, their only understanding or idea of um, conflict, and then also the people that contributed to 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 hopefully create the peace around that conflict, they only see it now on the news media. They don't all have that same feeling where in the past you either lost an uncle, brother, mother, father, or somebody directly connected to you. So you had a real feeling of that loss, and also the commitment they and the price they paid, the sacrifice of giving their life in order to increase the opportunity of peace around the world. How can the people that don't have that connection get away from the noise on the, like all of a sudden you see, somebody blowing up a ship in Venezuela with a drone, and that's what they think war is, and they don't know what actually is behind all that. It's just news and sensational information. How do people rationalize that today, Bill?
I think it's really hard to rationalize it personally. I think if you were to talk to any service member, any veteran, obviously you would probably relate to this, Richard. Um, we are probably the biggest peacemakers in the world. And
Mm,
we are probably the first to stand up and say, diplomacy, diplomacy, diplomacy. We believe that destruction and loss of life should be the last measure. And yes, we're trained to do that. But if you were to sort of strip it all down, I believe every single service member, every single veteran is the biggest proponent of peace, diplomacy, building bridges, and finding another way. And so, what I would encourage people to do is focus on those aspects. Lean into understanding what diplomacy is. Lean into understanding what deep listening is. Understand the other to the best of your ability. When when we're in a world that is so globalized, it can feel very overwhelming, right? We push on one issue and it raises another issue. Understand that sometimes the media is most interested in hijacking your senses
mm,
and hijacking your hypothalamus and putting you in a state of scarcity and fear. Resist that to the best of your ability and go inward and reach out to people and understand. You're absolutely right though, Richard. We're in this generation now where fewer and fewer people have immediate connections to service members and even veterans. But it doesn't mean the stories of the past have to be forgotten. So if you know a veteran or you know of a friend of a veteran, go meet with them. Ask them to just tell some stories. Maybe it'll inspire you to write a story. Maybe it'll inspire you to record a podcast with them.
mm,
Do something that allows that legacy of learning and languish and um, legacy to continue. That's my hope. That's my belief. Um, that that's how we will remember and connect people to these sensations, because ultimately it's about our own humanity.
thank you, Bill. And you mentioned the diplomacy, and I think that's if you can remember some of the stories, whether they're special services or in the case of our military, a Canadian general in Rwanda was very influential in helping reduce the carnage and the death by working with both sides and creating a diplomatic approach to reducing that tension and the wars around that. And those are the people that get the medals that are really meaningful in my mind. That they take that time and then they're selfless in that effort. to make it something that both sides can see, because both
Mhm.
sides have to see it for it to work, right? So when we talk about that, that's the bridge of diplomacy. So we really, really need to build those bridges so that we can come to the middle and meet there and understand each other. And that's another big part of conflict is misunderstanding. Why are we here? Why do you why do I have these feelings against you, if you will, so to speak? And then I build a story about the feelings I think that you have against me. Yet they both individuals have families, perhaps a loved one, and
Mhm.
they care about those people. Yet we build these stories. So, um, what can you say about how that repair can happen in situations like that about the stories that we build? Is there a repair that you can see?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a believer that the repair has to happen from the inside out. So if we're spending a lot of time expecting others to change around us and for us without us actually doing some of our own inner work, then we're going to be forever frustrated. And that's going to lead to anxiety. It's going to lead to disconnection. It's going to lead to judgment. And that's how we find ourselves in these global scale, right, disagreements. Um, but I believe if, again, going back to if you can trust yourself, if you can trust who you are and what you believe in, not not at the expense of, not this is not a zero sum game, right?
Hmm.
Um, then I think people would be surprised to learn how much we actually have in common with our fellow human. And again, this is where creativity and art and writing and music, sport, right? th- there's a reason sports diplomacy is so successful. There's a reason arts diplomacy is so successful. There's a reason when people get around animals and do equine therapy, it
Mm, yeah,
lowers all of their defenses. There's so many reminders in our everyday world that we are more alike than we are different. And that's where I encourage people to do some of the repair from the inside out. And then you should wake up one day and almost be delighted and surprised with how much we all have in common. And you'll make different decisions. Isn't that what healing is?
it sure is. So maybe at this point, Bill, we can open the floor to the audience and they can ask us any questions that they might have or thoughts they might have. And we'll be
Sure.
open to seeing that. If you have something you'd like to offer, please drop it into the message field and press send.
Yeah, and I want to say thanks for folks for joining and certainly and bearing with bearing with the technology. It's just it's one of those things that's you know, it reminds me that it's such a gift that we can connect in this way, and at the same time, as we talked about before, um, it's limited in its own capacity. So yeah,
So what do we have here? We have, Bill, your invitation to hear stories from veterans reminds me of the power of being witnessed.
hmm.
We truly heal and empower in the light of community. Thanks, Karen. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I think that is probably one of the most powerful nouns and verbs. Witness, right? To be a witness and to witness. And I encourage people to spend more time in the verb side, right?
Mm,
Understand and deliberate. What does that mean to witness someone, to hold space for them, to sometimes we say to walk in somebody's shoes, but I think if that's done with the right intentions, you're absolutely right, Karen. We inevitably create community. And from that place of community, we will solve different challenges because it's not just happening to you or to me, it's happening to us. And if we can see that in a way, we can reprioritize and hopefully prevent a lot of the division, the divisiveness, and the destruction. So thank you for that.
thank you, Bill. Would there be a story that you want to live next? What would be your next story that you want to live?
Oh gosh, what a great question this is. I feel like I live 1,000 stories a day and I'm always searching for the next one. I am feeling I'm feeling pretty called to do more work with veterans, but in a really unique space. As you mentioned, I'm sort of in this a bit of an edge walker between corporate world, nonprofit world, veteran world. I have a lot of creative endeavors as well, writing. I'd love to do music. And so I would love to see a story where I can help co-create or curate some offering in the form of music, put together or, amalgamated by service members or veterans. There's an organization, I think, called Creative Vets that I'm sort of watching from afar on Instagram. And it's really wonderful to see what happens when you bring people together who are healing, like we've been discussing, and you put a paintbrush in their hand or you put an instrument in their hand. And sometimes people are really taken aback by what emerges out of that very soulful but also wounded place. And I think there's a story there that's emerging. And whether I'm able to echo it or capture it or record it or contribute to it, there's a little flame there. And
That's cool.
I'm drawn to it. So yeah, that's a story I would love to find my way towards. Yeah, great
Well,
question.
that's excellent, Bill. And you mentioned the music, and it's so often that music is soothing and healing. In fact, there's a whole genre of sound healing that goes
Yeah.
around that, whether it's frequency or just the tone or the actual words. And there is actually one person I follow here on Substack. Her name is Siri, Siri. She's from Norway, and she paints to the music of sound healing that people do. So she gets into, I don't know if she would call it a trance, but into a channeling method way. And she actually focuses her camera down onto her paper as she's painting, and these feelings come out, like whether you're saying with a veteran, maybe their painting comes out red and black and rage comes out and anger comes out. And that's okay because as you said, if you don't let and take off that armor, that wiring that we have inside ourselves, that won't release. And that back to the whole aspect of the movie that we talked about earlier, Waves and War, that was that their sessions that they went for the medicine was all about releasing. So
Right.
maybe with this way that you're thinking and along the lines of art and music, there could be a whole therapy around that, and maybe we'll see you doing a live someday as well with some people doing an artistic uh, type of release and or therapy. It'd be nice to see. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Rekindle that flame.
Kendall, thank you. Well, we're coming close to the end of the session, 25 after the hour. And what I don't see any other questions or thoughts right now, Bill. So I thought I'd just do a little wrap and thank you again for your time here with us on I Am Veteran, this Remembrance Veterans Day, November 11th. And I do want to point out that wherever you may be or what or are right now, for us, it's 11 o'clock on the 11th month, 11th hour that we do 2 minutes of silence. So perhaps if wherever you are after this session, you can take that time, whether it's at 11 o'clock or whatever time that it is for you, that we can just take that 2 minutes of silence just to honor and recognize those that have gone before us and appreciate their service in all countries, and that we can acknowledge you and thank you and hope that any of those that are affected by that loss can heal and have a feeling of a blessing here from us and from all those around the world that thank you. So perhaps what we'll do here today, Bill, is we'll wrap on 2 minutes of silence
Sure.
and just acknowledge the candle that we have lit, and that we will take that time and we'll be back again soon with another I Am Live. So thank you, everyone. And we'll just spend just 2 minutes of silence here. You're welcome to stay with us if you will. Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bill. Bye now.